So the Hunted has the entire set revealed at this point. So for this week's Dice Commando video, we're going to sit down and go through my top picks for Commoner from the Hunted. A huge shout out to our channel members for supporting what we do here. If you want to get involved with the channel and the Dice Commando community, please consider joining as a channel member. Remember, these videos are only possible with your support. You can show that support with a like, a subscribe, and by leaving us a comment and sharing your feedback. Community first, and go Commando. Hey there, my flesh and blood friends. Welcome back to the channel for another installment of Dice Commando. That's right, headed into pre-release this weekend, coming off of the world premiere. We have the whole set. There's some interesting commons and a couple things going on with this set that maybe it will, maybe it won't. So let's talk all about that today. Now, full disclaimer, we're not going through the full set because going card by card by card, it's just not the type of video I want to make. Instead, let's talk kind of overall the impressions by hero. And then I'll go through some of my top picks and kind of put it in context of that. So first, as I mentioned, I do want to start with the heroes because I think that putting them into context puts a lot of the cards into context. Because, for example, let's hop over to Fang. Fang doesn't really play like the other warriors, right? And he really needs a bunch of the cards from this set. So to go through and be like every single warrior common is really valuable is false and true at the same time, because they're extremely important. If you like, all of the draconic reacts are like bread and butter, like they're essential to make him work, but they're not good commoner cards within the context of the general format, right? So that's kind of more what I mean there, right? And you know, while we're on Fang, you know, if you go and you look at, it's just kind of one of the problems of a hero introduced like this, especially when you go to commoner and you peel away so much of the bigger stuff. I think it's going to be pretty hard for him to make as many fealties to be able to do his thing, right? Just being honest there. And when you've got Aria and assassins who are going to be able to do daggers and react probably just as well, if not a little more efficiently in commoner, you know, I think Fang's going to struggle, but it'll be interesting to see what folks can do with him. Moving on to the next draconic hero, which is Syndra. She's almost the opposite of Fang because she only has really a couple of pieces in the set that I think are good and applicable to her. And they're mostly just to her because she has all of the stuff from Uprising to fall back on, not to mention a hugely amazing ninja package, right? So there's not as many cards that would apply to Syndra. So I'm going to attack this very differently when we go through both of those heroes cards. Now go down to our assassins, and yes, I am counting original ASC in this as well. I know he has already been so he was a rare before, and still remains, I believe, because he's being released as Marvel here. So either way, he's still legal within Commoner. Has really struggled. I don't think too much changes there with him in this set. Obviously, he got a bunch more stealth stuff. But most of the like crazy assassin, like, because there's some crazy assassin cards in this set, like at the main constructed level, but not as much at the commoner level. Now, Web of Deceit is going to be very interesting to see. I know there's going to be some of you folks out there who try really hard to get him to work, and I think it might, and I think it might not. Right? I mean, that's a very safe statement. It's either going to work or it's not. I nailed it, right? But there's, you know, not as many ways to mark. There's several, right? But in order to do the thing, I don't know, we'll just have to see on that one. So as we go through this, you will see that as I go through some of my top picks, that having folks be marked carries a little more weight, in my opinion, not just because of these heroes like for Fang, but because of, well, I mean, I guess Deceit really needs it too, otherwise why you're playing them, right? So I guess that probably is self-explanatory, but we have to keep it in context of the hero versus the commoner format in general. Now, hopping into commoner format in general, there's some legit good equipment out of this. So the Beckoner series, we'll call it that, right? These are very interesting pieces of equipment. So they are full suite, base 1 with Guardwell. And so remember, Guardwell is when you're done defending, you put counters on equal to what it defended. And this gets +1 while defending a weapon attack. So these straight up, like, there's no reason to play Iron Rod anymore, right? Or anything that you would play instead of Iron Rod, like, I don't know, like Aurora was playing the Lightning Helm just cause. And Dash was playing the Tekla Helm just cause, right? Because it wasn't Iron Rod. These are better because at a very minimum, this can block 1 on an action card, and then it would get a -1 counter. And then if you were to use it to block a weapon, it would block for 2 -1 with the counter on it and block for 1, and then again get -1. Or you could just throw it in front of a weapon and block 2. So functionally, these are very good in the context of the format because the fact is you have a full suite of it, right? So, is the head as good as the chest? Probably. Actually, the head's probably better because there's a lot of heroes out there who don't have a legit headpiece. The boots? Well, I mean, like snappies and so anyway, but you can fit this where you need it to go. This is a pretty good series. Like I said, it can either block for 1 and 1 or it could straight block for 2. And if you're up against somebody who doesn't have a weapon, it still blocks 1. And that's what, in many cases, you were hoping for anyway. Like, this is pretty legit good. All right, next up, we have Backstab. So just another point of note is we're not going through every single card in the set, but I am going top to bottom, not like this is my number 1, this is my number 10. I'm just going straight up top to bottom. Because I think it's hard for a lot of the marked cards, and especially with the different classes, to rate them against each other anyway. But Backstab I wanted to start with regardless of it being at the top because this has been reprinted in the red only. It was a red in Outsiders, it was a rare in Outsiders, and it is now derated to commoner in red only, which is very interesting. I think the person who benefits, the hero who benefits the most from this is ASC. I think that's true for now, but we'll, not being able to do defense reactions when Arachnes, as you'll see later, is going to be potentially throwing quite a few reacts. Next up, I have Reaper's Call. I think this is a fundamentally good card. So it has stealth on its own. It's a base stealth for 0/3/3, right? So it perfectly fits the mold, but you can do the instant thing, which you can discard to mark. So I think this one's pretty functionally good. Like, do you run it over anything else in ASC? If in a hero to where you don't care about them being marked, no, you don't run it over anything that has any other effect, right? We accept that. But if there's any chance at all that you're playing some card within your deck that has a marked interaction, this is pretty good. So, is it, I guess I shouldn't say it's pretty good, but this is pretty functional. And I think that, given the fact that it's perfectly on curve for what we'd expect, and keep in mind, this is in a rainbow, it's not just a red that I'm showing now, but it's in a rainbow. So running the blue of this actually is not like horrible either, right? I think this one's pretty decent. Let me know in the comments below if you agree on that. You have to ask yourself, is marking them worth a card? Depending on the situation, I think maybe it is. And if you're like Web of Deceit, I think it probably totally is because it's kind of your game plan. At least why you're playing the hero anyway. So next we have Two Sides of the Blade. So this is it's a standard 1/3 react, kind of. But its target dagger gets +3 or stealth gets +3, and when it hits a hero, mark them. So kind of to my point before, this is pretty functional. Compared to some cards we're going to see later, the fact that it costs 1 for the daggers is not super good. It's on rate, to be clear, especially with a card that blocks 3. But the fact that this can then mark on a stealth at 1/3, I think this one's good. And again, it gives you flexibility, so you can kind of come from wherever, which is kind of what assassins are trying to do, especially in commoner with what, again, we'll see at the end. All right, so moving into Burning Blade Dance. So this is Syndra's flick. This is Syndra's commoner flick. There is one more card that allows you to flick, but this is Syndra's only commoner flick card. And it's not even really a flick card because this has to hit. But I still think the fact that this is a 0/3, gets go again if you're doing what you want to do anyway, and blocks 3. I think this one's functionally good. I think if you're playing Syndra, you play this. It's going to force cards out of their hand. They're probably going to take. They're probably not. They're probably going to block it. They're not going to take it. But I think you play this in Syndra. So I think this card is functionally good out of the set. You're not going to play it with anybody else. So this is clearly a Syndra only card. But I think she doesn't. And honestly, she doesn't, with the lack of flick effects she has, I don't know where she's going to end, but the fact she can run Blaze Headlong and Lava Burst and stuff like that. So we'll have to see where she lands there. But again, remember, she's got a whole suite of Fi cards to fall back on, but then you have to ask yourself, if she's not doing the thing, why not Fi? So, I don't know, very interesting. All right, next card, I do like this one a lot. So this is Hot on Their Heels, 0/3/3. If you control 2 or more Draconics, this gets go again, and when it hits 0, mark them. I don't think that's super relevant, the mark part, for how you're going to be playing Syndra in Commoner. Fi won't give a crud at all. But I think Fi probably picked up more than Syndra did in Commoner, if we're being completely honest with ourselves. I really like this card for him. I'm going to put it in. I mean, because the fact is, a lot of his cards you were doing, 0/3 block 2s. Well, it's a 0/3/3. The only difference being it's not a fire starter. But he has plenty of, he has the whole suite. He's got Cindering, Ronin, and Anger. It's Resentment. Okay, next, Gora Wings. I really like this one, basically for the same argument as what I just made. It is not Draconic in of itself, but it shouldn't be that hard to do a Draconic last attack, and this is probably more Syndra than it is Fi. I don't know that Fi does do this one because it doesn't help you with your thing, but I think Syndra probably does because you can just dagger and this has go again. I think this works, and again, it's a 0/3/3. So are there better options? Maybe. I think Syndra needs to stick more to the Draconic plan, right? Because, Fi, in many cases, is playing a Rupture, and he's, getting Phoenix Flame whenever he feels like it, or whenever he efficiently can, or maybe pays 1/2. But I think Syndra really needs more of that. And I know that this one doesn't help on that, but because she's leaning so heavy into the Draconic and she has the 2 daggers, I think this one makes sense to try and help you get to your Rupture card, right? Because the Rupture, so you go, right, with Syndra, the basic Commoner play is going to be dagger, filler card, get to Rupture, all of which are Draconic, then Syndra for free. I mean, that's your play, right? Because you have the 2 on board, you only need 1 other Draconic card. So I think Realist or Blaze Headlong, Salt the Wound, whatever, right? You get it. I think this one fits into that. Probably more with her than Fi, but I could see it. Now, I threw this one in here specifically on the yellow and to a lesser extent the blue. And this is a contingent card. This is one that I'm not sure it is good or not, but I'm kind of theory crafting on this one, right? So I specifically went with a yellow for Benji. I think Benji's still pretty legitimate in Commoner. It's hard when you're up against all the other ninjas, right? But I think Benji's pretty good. And the fact that Benji can guarantee a mark on, it's a head jab that marks, right? And you're playing head jab in Benji. So this is strictly better in the case that you can figure out something to do with marked, which is also interesting because Benji could, in theory, do unblockable stuff that gets benefits when attack. Well, you probably wouldn't want a benefit when attacking a marked hero because generally that makes the attack stronger, which would hurt you with Benji. But if you have something, like if you can come up with some like reliable play where hitting a marked hero does something to them with Ninja, like I said, I don't have the full line out yet, but I think this one has potential. So is this one on the good list? It's on the maybe list. I think, like I said, I think I'm thinking on it. Danger Digits. So this one in of itself, so this is an attack reaction, destroy this. Target dagger you control that is not on the active chain deals 1 damage and it flicks the knife. Blah, 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 flicks the knife. So it doesn't block. But the reason I think this is interesting, again, is kind of in context of some other stuff we're going to talk about in terms of being able to flick daggers. And specifically, I'll just go ahead, Poisoned Blade. I'm showing that right now. That's specifically what I'm thinking of, is getting those daggers to hit, as long as you can do potentially stacked or something like that. But maybe, right? Maybe. But, it's tough when, from a ninja standpoint, it's tough when this is up against the Tiger Arms, which is its own separate link that, if you're trying to play, in Syndra, if you're trying to play, and to be clear, this isn't Draconic, but she's probably the only one that would care about flicks because, Ira maybe, but Ira's not going to play this over the Tiger Gloves because she needs that for her go wide to get blood sent. So I think this is probably a Syndra card. maybe an assassin card. But I think this one's very interesting. I think it's very interesting. Okay, so now I didn't want to go through all of the individual cards for Fang because kind of as I mentioned at the beginning, they all kind of fit together as a package. So some of the cards I'm looking at straight up, Blistering Blade, Sisters of Fire. Sisters of Fire is straight up in this way for Draconics. However, here's why I think he's going to ultimately struggle in Commoner is because cards like Sisters of Fire say, if you control 2 or more Draconics. So there's a lot of cards that will give you reductions based on the number of Draconics. So they're really looking for you to play 2 of his daggers or come up with another Draconic somewhere. But that's pretty aggressive. And I don't know in Commoner that he has the cards with which to make it aggressive enough yet. The other thing is he depends a lot on being marked, like we talked about. So, you look at a card like Cut Deep. Cut Deep is awesome. Like, it's just a straight up better sharpened steel for a lower rate weapon, right? Because you're comparing a dagger to a Cintauri Saber, right? So, like, 1 for 2, 1 for 1. Obviously, it has potential to get better. We all get it. But Cut Deep's pretty good, okay? Imperial Intent is just, it's a 0-2 on his dagger. It's functionally a 0-2. So, perfect. Searing Gaze is a 0-2, Blistering Blade is a 0-2. So it's got, he's got enough of those. I think that he makes 1 dagger work. But back to the point of Sisters of Fire, I think you're probably playing Quicksilver Dagger with him. I don't know. I guess I don't know what you're doing after you Quicksilver Dagger with him because you could play Blaze Headlong in the middle. So it wouldn't really matter. So maybe you are playing both daggers with him in Commoner. Maybe that is the play. And then talking about, like, he's going to need marks because he's going to need to mark so that he can do fealty. Stuff like Hunt a Killer is very important to getting this done. And, Hunt a Killer is, 1 for 4, which is not great, but that, that's kind of the on rate thing we're seeing is that the potential to mark is generally costs 1 value somewhere. It's either that it costs 1 more or it derates defense. We've seen that pretty consistently, to go from an equivalent card would be like a 0-3 block card that does the same thing that would mark would be a 0 with 2 block, right? It's pretty consistent across the set that it either costs 1 more or you derate defense. Okay, so one card that is, I think, straight up really good, and again, yes, it's in Fang because he's the only one right now that cares about marks, but Sworn Vengeance is just straight up good. Actually, that's a good example of what we just talked about, right? So you see Cut Deep is a 0-4 that blocks 3. Sworn Vengeance is a 0-3 that blocks 3, but it has the mark ability, right? So the ability to mark either, it derates a point somewhere is what marking, the potential to mark does. All right, Poison Blade. This is probably the biggest one, I think, just because, like, now they've got to block your frickin' daggers. And, I don't think this is great for Assassin because Assassin has all of the 2 daggers and the Orb Weaver, Sands rolling because you're not going to be able to control which Arachne you flip into. So and the Orb Weaver Spinneret card, which is the Nimbleism that equips the Celery, is rare. So I think this is mostly a ninja card, but I think there are Ira builds that play this. I believe so. And because this is independent, right? So, and to be clear, this would be, you'd have some like weird, I think you'd want to play at least the red blue, if not all of them. Syndra probably plays all of them. Maybe at least the red blue, I think Syndra. I don't know why you wouldn't. Like, they're either, to be clear, you don't have as many flick effects. So this isn't like as busted combo as it can be, obviously, for her in Constructed, right? But this 1-3 that they probably won't block because they know they have to save cards to block. But considering that off of a blue, you could do this and then 2 daggers that would each deal 1 with a health loss, that's a lot in Commoner for a blue with even Kodachis. That's pretty good. right? And then that's what you would keep your, what the heck was the name of that card? The danger digits. Keep your danger digits on board because it's one more, especially on Syndra where you're going to get it back anyway. So that's, I think this card's really got some serious potential in maybe all the ninja builds. Probably not Benji. I mean, and again, it's not contingent on hit. So I think if you're doing it, you're probably doing more and then running a bunch of reacts, right? And that's to that end, it could work for Assassin. I just don't like the fact that all the Assassin daggers in this format are going to be 2s. That's tough, right? Right, we do have Throw Yourself at Them. So this is the only other commoner flick card. So we saw, aside from Danger Digits, we had Syndra's, and then this is the only flick card that's not ninja only, I guess, that's at commoner level. I think that's true. I'm relatively positive that's true. So Throw Yourself at Them's a 1/3 go again that when it attack lets you flick. So, the fact that this costs 1 does make it hard to line up with Poison Blade. It's doable, right? You just go full on and understand that you're going to either deal a buttload of damage or drain their hand and get to go at them again. It's probably the latter. But, again, something with this, with, Kodachis, unless you can backfill, not as good. And again, there's not as many ways to backfill. There is a card that will let you do the re-equip thing where you can pay 1. But it itself costs 1, so it actually costs 2. And then you'd have to swing again. So not great. But if it'll win you the game in a pinch, do it. Right, now we've got Incision. So this is an Assassin Warrior attack reaction, which is just a straight up target dagger gets +3. I think this is very threatening, and I think this is the route that the Assassins go. I don't know that Fang plays this one because, he'd have to fealty for it. I mean, maybe. He doesn't, to be clear, he doesn't have to fealty for it. And maybe he does run this. But I think the Assassins play this because it gives them so many threats. I mean, think about this next to Razor's Edge. And then moving into the next card, Scar Tissue. Target dagger attack gets +3, and when it hits a hero, mark them, right? So you see, again, the clear derating. This one blocks, does the same thing, but marks, but blocks less. But straight up, again, you have 1, 2, and I think the next one as well. Yeah, Take a Stab is target dagger gets +3, and when it hits a marked hero, attack with an additional time this turn. Also has 2. You're probably not doing an additional attack with, I don't know, you're coming up with all this money for your Assassin ones. But you have now between Razor's Edge, which Razor's Edge is stealth only, right? But now you have 3 reacts that can pump your daggers by 3. That's very interesting from a Assassin point of view, right? Thank God they're not for ninjas, because that on Kodachis would be gross. All right, and then I believe this is the last one, but Public Bounty, the only reason I have this one on here is for basically the heroes that need it. And this is pretty legit. It functionally is a 1/3. I do suppose there's some edge cases in which you'd play this, like, I don't know what the edge case would be, honestly. Maybe you're a Runeblade and you're playing this for some reason. I don't think you would. You'd play Come to Fight, right? But for 1 +3 effectively on your next attack. And it's not dependent on, it's not weapon, it's not action, it's just straight up the next attack you have gets +3. I think that's pretty legit, right? And then they're still marked. So you're either hitting them and getting the benefit of marking them, or if hitting a marked hero, I should say, or they stay marked, and then you can continue to have that. So I think, it's not that this is straight up good. Like, again, I already mentioned Come to Fight. You'd play, if you don't care about the mark, play Come to Fight, block 3. Well, I mean, Come to Fight's action card, but you get my point, right? Play some equivalent that either pumps weapon or whatever, you get it. Sharpen steel, right? But I think this fits. I think this fits where it fits. So that is, me kind of summarizing the set of where I think. I'll go ahead and go back to the heroes. Syndra seems very interesting and very fun. I think the true winner from this set was probably Fi, if I'm being honest. But the Poison Blade thing for the ninja potential with the Kodachis is too scary, too potentially scary to ignore. So anyway, I'll end it there. I know this was a longer commenter video than normal, but hey, that's cool. So let me know in the comments below what you think, what your ideas are. If you did appreciate the longer video, make sure to give the like and the sub, which is kind of like hitting the subscribe button. But I don't know why I said that. Whatever. We're out of here. Go Commando.